You think you know your family until a child calls you from the police station at midnight, whispering the truth no one else would believe. Because when a granddaughter reaches out for help at that hour, something terrifying is happening inside that home. Before we begin, I'm curious, where are you listening from? Funny how we can be miles apart and still meet in the same story, isn't it? It was 2:53 in the morning when my phone shattered the silence of my house. At that hour, no call ever brings good news. I reached into the darkness, fumbling across my nightstand until I found my cell phone. The screen lit up my face with that cold glow that snaps you back to reality. It was Malik, my grandson, the only one who still called me Grandma without anyone forcing him to. Malik, baby, what happened? My voice came out rough from sleep, but my heart was already beating like it knew something was terribly wrong. What I heard on the other end froze my blood. Grandma, his voice trembled, broken by tears. I'm at the police station. Vivica. She hit me with a silver candle holder. My eyebrow is bleeding, but she's saying I attacked her, that I pushed her down the stairs. My dad believes her, Grandma. He doesn't believe me. I felt the air leave my lungs. I sat up in bed, my bare feet hitting the cold floor. Malik's words bounced around in my head like stray bullets. Vivica, my son's wife, the woman who in 5 years had accomplished what I thought was impossible, turned Andre into a stranger. Calm down, baby. Which police station are you at? The 7th District. Grandma, I'm scared. There's an officer who says if a responsible adult doesn't come, they're going to transfer me to... Don't say another word. I interrupted, already getting to my feet, searching for my clothes with shaking hands. I'm coming. Don't talk to anyone until I get there. You understand me? Yes, Grandma. He hung up, and I stood there in the middle of my bedroom, holding the phone like it was the only real thing in that moment. My reflection in the dresser mirror stared back at me, a 67-year-old woman with gray hair disheveled and deep circles under her eyes. But I didn't see a scared old lady. I saw Commander Regina Salazar, the same woman who had worked in the Chicago Police Department for 35 years, who had interrogated criminals, solved impossible cases, faced situations that would make anyone tremble. And for the first time in 8 years since my retirement, I felt that woman awakening again. I dressed in less than 5 minutes. Black pants, gray sweater, my comfortable boots. I grabbed my purse and, almost by instinct, opened my dresser drawer. There it was, my expired commander's badge. I slipped it into my back pocket. I didn't know if it would help, but something told me I was going to need it that night. When I stepped outside, the city was wrapped in that thick silence that only exists in the early morning hours. I flagged down a taxi on the main avenue. The driver, a man about 50 years old, looked at me in the rearview mirror. Where to, ma'am? 7th District Police Station, and please hurry, it's an emergency. He nodded and accelerated. I stared out the window without really seeing anything. I could only think about Malik, his broken voice, the words he had said. My dad doesn't believe me. Andre, my son, the boy I had raised alone after his father abandoned us when he was barely 3 years old. The man I had given everything to, education, values, unconditional love. The same one who 5 years ago had stopped visiting me, stopped calling me, erased me from his life like I had never existed. And all because of her, because of Vivica. I met her at a casino where she worked as a dealer. Andre had just been widowed, destroyed by the death of his first wife, Malik's mother. Vivica appeared like a saving angel, young, beautiful, attentive, too perfect. I saw it from the beginning. I saw the way she looked at him, not with love, but with calculation, like someone evaluating an investment.
But Andre was blind. He needed to fill that void his wife's death had left him, and Vivica knew exactly how to fill it. Little by little, she began planting doubts in his head. "Your mother is very controlling, honey. She never lets you make your own decisions. She's always judging you." At first, Andre defended me, but drops of poison, when they fall one after another, eventually poison even the purest water. Visits became spaced out, calls grew shorter, birthdays were forgotten, Christmas came with invented excuses, until one day he simply stopped looking for me. The only one who kept coming was Malik. On weekends when he stayed with his father, he'd find a way to escape for a few hours to visit me. He'd bring me drawings from school, tell me his problems, hug me like he found refuge in those arms that he no longer had in his own home. And I, like the fool I was, thought that eventually things would get better, that Andre would react, that time would bring him to his senses. How wrong I was. The taxi stopped in front of the police station, a gray 2-story building with lights on. I paid the driver and got out. My legs trembled, but not from fear, from contained rage.
I entered through the main door. The duty officer, a young man about 25 years old, looked up from his desk. "Good evening. How can I help you?" "I'm here from Malik Salazar, my grandson. He called me half an hour ago." The officer checked a sheet in front of him. "Ah, yes, the domestic violence case. You're his grandmother?" "Regina Salazar." Something changed in his face when he heard my name. He went slightly pale. He looked at me more carefully, like he was trying to remember something. "Salazar? Like Commander Salazar?" I took my expired badge from my pocket and placed it on the desk. The officer picked it up, looked at it, and his expression changed completely. He stood up immediately. "Good Lord. Commander, I'm sorry, I didn't know you were family of the boy. Please. Where is my grandson?" My voice came out firm, without hesitation, the voice I had used hundreds of times to interrogate, to command, to make people understand I wasn't playing games. "In the waiting room, with his parents and, well, with the complainant. Captain Samuel Dupree is in charge of the case." Dupree. That name made me pause for a second. Samuel Dupree had been one of my subordinates years ago. A good man, fair, intelligent. "Take me to him." The officer nodded and guided me down a hallway I knew like the back of my hand. I had walked these same floors hundreds of times during my career. Every corner, every door, every crack in the wall brought back memories of a life I thought I had left behind. But that night, I understood something. You never stop being who you were. You just pretend to have forgotten it. We arrived at the waiting room, and there, in that cold space, lit by fluorescent lights, I saw the scene that would change everything. Malik was sitting in a plastic chair with his right eyebrow bandaged clumsily with gauze. His eyes were red from crying so much. When he saw me, he jumped up. "Grandma!" He ran to me and hugged my waist like when he was little. I felt his body trembling against mine. I stroked his hair and whispered, "I'm here now, baby. I'm here now." But my gaze had already found the other 2 characters in that scene. Andre was standing by the wall with his arms crossed and his jaw tense. He looked at me with an expression I couldn't decipher. Shame? Anger? Guilt? And next to him, sitting with her legs crossed and a perfectly rehearsed victim expression, was Vivica. She wore a wine-colored satin robe, as if they had pulled her from bed by force. She had a bruise on her left arm that looked freshly made. Her brown hair fell in perfect waves over her shoulders. She looked at me with those big teary eyes, as if saying, "Look what your grandson did to me." But I knew that look. I had seen it in dozens of criminals who tried to fool me during my career. The look of someone who knows how to act,
who knows how to manipulate. Regina, Andre said in a dry voice, without moving from his spot. You didn't need to come. Those 5 words hurt me more than any physical blow. I didn't have time to respond because at that moment, an office door opened and out came a man about 49 years old in an impeccable uniform with a serious expression. Captain Samuel Dupree. When he saw me, he stopped dead in his tracks. Commander Salazar. Hello, Samuel, I said calmly. It's been a while since we've seen each other. He approached, clearly surprised. No, I didn't know you were involved in this case. If I had known, now you know. And I need you to explain to me exactly what is happening here. Because something told me that what I had heard over the phone was just the tip of the iceberg. And I was about to discover how deep the abyss was that my family had fallen into. If you want to know how a grandmother everyone had forgotten became the worst nightmare of someone who tried to destroy her family, this story is just beginning. Samuel Dupree took me to his office. Malik came with me, clinging to my hand like he was afraid I might disappear. Andre and Vivica stayed in the waiting room. I could feel my son's gaze fixed on my back, but I didn't turn around. I wasn't going to give him that satisfaction.
Samuel's office was small but organized. A metal desk, 2 chairs in front of it, a filing cabinet in the corner, and a crucifix on the wall. Nothing had changed much since my time. Even the smell of old coffee and paper was the same. Please, sit down, Samuel said, closing the door behind us. I sat in one of the chairs, and Malik settled beside me. He kept his eyes down, hands clasped in his lap. Samuel sat across from us and opened a folder. He sighed before speaking. Commander, the situation is complicated. Explain the facts to me, I said, without beating around the bush. Her version first. Samuel nodded and consulted his notes. Mrs. Vivica Coleman Salazar filed a complaint at 11:43 p.m. She arrived accompanied by her husband, Mr. Andre Salazar, your son. She alleges that approximately 10:30 p.m., the minor Malik returned home after his permitted hour. When she called his attention to it, he reacted violently, pushed her down the stairs, and hit her on the arm. She has bruises that partially match her story. Every word was like a needle piercing my chest. I looked at Malik. He still had his head down, but I saw how his hands trembled. And my grandson's version? I asked, though from Samuel's tone, I already knew nobody had believed him. The minor alleges that it was Mrs. Vivica who attacked him first. He says when he got home, she was already upset, that she waited for him in the living room and, without saying a word, hit him with a blunt object. According to him, a silver candle holder. The wound on his eyebrow required 3 stitches. Did you check the candle holder? Samuel shook his head, uncomfortable. Mrs. Vivica says no such object exists, that the boy invented that story to justify his aggression. And here's the problem, Commander. The house security cameras were broken that night. Just that night. I leaned back in my chair, processing the information. It wasn't a coincidence. None of this was. Not that he needed my strength. How convenient, right? Samuel looked at me with that expression I knew well. Someone who knows something doesn't add up, but doesn't have enough evidence to act. The cameras had been broken for 3 days, according to the husband. They were going to call a technician this week. And the neighbors' cameras on the street were in the process of reviewing, but the house is in a private residential area. No public cameras nearby. Of course not. Vivica had planned this perfectly. Every detail, every movement. This wasn't a fit of rage. It was premeditated. I turned to Malik. I put my hand over his. "Look at me, baby." He slowly raised his eyes. They were full of fear and shame. "Tell me everything from the beginning, and don't hide anything from me." Malik swallowed hard, looked at Samuel, then back at me. "I was late because I stayed studying at a classmate's house. I have a math test on Monday. I got home at 10:15, not that late, but when I opened the door, Vivica was there in the living room with the lights off. Only the kitchen light was on." His voice began to break, but he continued. "She said to me, 'You're late, you insolent brat.' I told her I had texted my dad. She laughed and showed me my dad's phone. She had it. My dad was asleep. Then she said to me, 'Your father doesn't care about you. Nobody cares about you. You're a burden in this house.'" Tears began rolling down his cheeks. "I just wanted to go up to my room, Grandma. I swear. But she grabbed my arm and pulled me. I tried to get loose, and then she took the candle holder from the table and hit me here." He pointed to his bandaged eyebrow. I felt everything spinning around me. "And your father, where was he?" "Sleeping in his room. She had given him chamomile tea because he said he was stressed. When he heard the noise and came down, everything was already set up. Vivica was crying, saying I had attacked her. My dad didn't even ask me. He just yelled that I was a disgrace and called the police." I closed my eyes for a moment, breathed deeply. The rage I felt was like a contained fire in my chest. And the candle holder? She hid it before my dad came down. I don't know where she put it. I opened my eyes and looked directly at Samuel. "Samuel, you knew my work for 20 years. Did you ever see me let someone innocent pay for something they didn't do?" "Never, Commander. My grandson is telling the truth, and I'm going to prove it." Samuel rubbed his face with both hands. "Regina, legally my hands are tied. It's the word of a minor against 2 adults. The father supports the wife's version. I don't have physical evidence that contradicts their story. The only thing I can do is release him under your temporary custody while this is investigated. But I need you to sign as the responsible party. Do it. I'll take responsibility." Samuel pulled out some papers and began filling them out. Meanwhile, I watched Malik. That boy had grown so much in the last year. He was already 15, almost a man. But in that moment, curled up in that chair with his broken eyebrow and swollen eyes, he was once again the 7-year-old boy who cried in my arms when his mother died. "How long has this been going on, Malik?" I asked quietly. He lowered his gaze again. "What, Grandma?" "Don't make me ask that question. You know what I'm referring to." There was a long silence. I could hear the tick-tock of the clock on the wall. Finally, Malik spoke so quietly I could barely hear him. 6 months ago, it started with insults. Then she began breaking my things. My video game console, my notebooks, a soccer trophy you gave me. She said they were accidents. My dad believed her. Then she started hitting me. Slaps, pushes. One time she locked me in the basement all afternoon because I said I wanted to come see you. My heart broke into 1,000 pieces. Why didn't you tell me before? Because I was afraid that if I told you, my dad would get angrier at you. I thought if I endured it a little longer, things would get better. But today was different. I saw something in her eyes, Grandma. I realized that she wants me to disappear." Samuel finished filling out the papers and handed them to me. I signed them without reading, trusting him. Then he stood up. "I'm going to call your son to sign the minor's release as well. Wait here." He left the office. Malik and I were alone. I hugged him.
this time tighter. I felt his body relax against mine, like for the first time in hours, he could breathe peacefully. Forgive me, baby. Forgive me for not realizing before. It's not your fault, Grandma. It's my dad who didn't want to see. He was right, but that didn't make it hurt any less. The door opened. Andre entered alone. He didn't even look at me. He approached the desk, took the pen Samuel offered him, and signed the papers with brusque movements, like every second in there hurt him. "That's it," he said dryly. "Can I go?"
Andre, I said, standing up, we need to talk. I have nothing to talk to you about, he responded without turning around. You made your choice. You chose to believe him instead of my wife. Your wife? And your son? When did your own son stop mattering? He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes froze my blood. There was no love, no guilt, just nothing. An emptiness I didn't recognize. My son attacked my wife. The evidence is there. Vivica has the bruises. He has a history of bad behavior at school. What history? Malik exploded. That's a lie. I've never had problems at school. You were suspended last week for fighting with a classmate. Because that classmate was bothering a girl. He was harassing her and I defended her. The principal congratulated me after talking to the witnesses. Andre didn't respond. He simply turned around and left the office, slamming the door. I stood there, feeling like every piece of hope I had of getting my son back was crumbling. Your support truly keeps me going, and if you'd like to be a source of inspiration for others too, give this story a like and subscribe. Together, we can reach and help even more people. Samuel put a hand on my shoulder. I'm sorry, Regina. Don't be sorry, I replied, wiping away a tear that had escaped without permission. He made his choice. Now I'm going to make mine. I took Malik's hand. Let's go home. We left the police station into the cold, early morning. Vivica and Andre had already gone. On the empty street, under the orange light of the streetlights, I stopped for a moment. Malik looked at me. What are we going to do, Grandma? I looked into his eyes, those eyes that looked so much like his mother's. Good, noble, incapable of lying. We are going to prove the truth, baby, and we are going to make her pay for every tear she made you shed. Because Vivica made a mistake that night. A mistake that would cost her everything. She messed with my grandson, and nobody, absolutely nobody, hurts my family without me doing something about it. Commander Regina Salazar was back, and this time there was no retirement that could stop me. We arrived at my house when the sun was just beginning to peek through the buildings. Malik walked silently beside me, dragging his feet from exhaustion and pain. I lived in a modest apartment in Bronzeville, a third-floor walk-up that I had bought with my life savings. It wasn't luxurious, but it was mine. Every piece of furniture, every plate, every memory on those walls belonged to me. I opened the door and turned on the lights. The familiar smell of coffee and cinnamon welcomed me. I always left a little cinnamon stick on the stove so the house would smell like home. Come, sit on the sofa, I told Malik. I'm going to make you something to eat. I'm not hungry, Grandma. I didn't ask if you were hungry. I told you I'm going to make you something. He managed a weak smile and collapsed onto the brown fabric sofa. It was old, but comfortable. I had bought it at a second-hand market 15 years ago, and it was still holding up. I went to the kitchen and heated milk. I prepared 2 cups of hot cocoa, the way my mother taught me when I was a girl.
I cut a piece of sweet roll that I had bought yesterday at Mama Hattie's kitchen, 2 blocks from here. I returned to the living room with everything on a tray. Malik took the cup in his hands and sipped. He closed his eyes, savoring it. For a moment, he seemed to forget everything that had happened. "Thank you, Grandma. Eat slowly, then I'll give you something for the pain in your eyebrow." I sat next to him and drank my cocoa in silence. Outside, the city was beginning to wake up. You could hear the first buses, the whistle of the man who sold breakfast burritos on the corner, the barking of Duke, the dog from the second-floor neighbor. "Grandma," Malik said after a while, "can I stay with you?" "Of course, for as long as you need." "I don't mean temporarily. Forever. I don't want to go back to that house, not with her there." I put my cup on the coffee table and looked at him. "Malik, legally your father has custody. I can only have you temporarily until the case is resolved. If you want to stay with me permanently, we'll have to do things right, with lawyers, with judges. But my dad will never accept that. We don't know until we try."
He shook his head. He does everything Vivica tells him to. Since they got married, it's like my dad became a different person. Do you know what I heard a week ago? What did you hear? Malik lowered his voice as if someone could hear us. I was in their room. I was going to the bathroom and I passed by their door. It was slightly open. Vivica was talking on the phone with someone. She was saying, "Don't worry, everything is going according to plan. When the old lady dies, Andre will inherit the house. We sell it and we'll get at least 4.5 million. With that and what I already have saved, we move to Miami, open the hotel like we always dreamed, and we send the brat to military school in Virginia. Let someone else deal with him." I felt my blood boiling inside. "Are you sure of what you heard?" "Completely sure, Grandma. That's why that night when I came home late and she attacked me, I knew it was part of her plan. She wants to separate me from you. She wants you to see me as a problem. She wants my dad to see me that way too. And when I'm no longer in the way, she just has to wait for you." He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Vivica was planning my death, or at least she was waiting for me to die soon. And meanwhile, she was going to destroy any bond that existed between my son and me, between Malik and his father. "Did you tell your dad anything?" I tried. The next day when Vivica went to the beauty salon, I told him what I had heard. You know what he said? That I was making things up because I couldn't accept that he had rebuilt his life, that I was a resentful teenager, that Vivica had been very patient with me and I was just making her look bad. The helplessness I felt in that moment was crushing. My own son, the boy I had raised to be fair and honest, was completely blinded. "You're not making anything up, Malik, and I believe you, every word." He rested his head on my shoulder and sighed. "Why does she hate us so much, Grandma?" "Because the hatred of people like Vivica doesn't come from the heart. It comes from ambition. For her, you and I are obstacles, things standing between her and what she wants." "And what does she want?" "Money, power, an easy life without working for it." I sat thinking in silence. I began connecting dots. When Andre met Vivica, she told him she came from a wealthy family in Atlanta, that she had studied at private schools, that she worked as a dealer at the casino because she liked the excitement, not out of necessity. But we never met her family. No relatives came to the wedding. When I asked Andre about it, he told me Vivica was estranged from her parents due to personal problems. How convenient. "Malik, I need you to do me a favor." "Anything, Grandma." "Take out your phone and show me the photos of the bruises you said you had from before." He took his cell phone out of his pocket, unlocked the screen, and opened his gallery. He showed me a hidden folder in his files. There were at least 20 photos, bruises on his arms, on his back, on his legs, all recent, all with dates. Why didn't you ever show me this?
Because I was afraid that if I did something, my dad would blame you. Vivica always says that you turn me against them. Send me all those photos now." Malik obeyed. My phone began vibrating as the images arrived. Each photo was evidence. Each mark was a silent cry for help that nobody had heard until now. "Now I need you to sleep a little," I told him. "Your eyebrow is swollen and you need to rest. Use my room. I'll stay here on the sofa." "But Grandma," "No buts. Go to sleep." He got up, kissed my forehead, and went to my bedroom. I heard him close the door softly. I stayed alone in the living room with my cell phone in my hand and the photos of my beaten grandson filling the screen. Then I did something I hadn't done in years. I opened a drawer in the living room cabinet and took out an old notebook with leather covers. It was my investigation notebook, the same one I used when I was active. Inside were phone numbers, contacts, notes from old cases. I looked for a specific name, Latrice Dawkins. Latrice had been my partner for 10 years in the police department. She was younger than me, but equally tenacious. When I retired, she continued working a couple more years until she opened her own private investigation agency. We had seen each other few times since then, but I knew that if anyone could help me, it was her. I dialed her number. It rang 4 times before she answered. "Hello?" Her hoarse voice sounded sleepy. "Latrice, it's Regina Salazar." There was silence, then a sigh. "Commander, it's been ages since I heard from you. What time is it?" 6:30 in the morning. "Sorry to wake you, but I need your help. It's urgent." "Tell me." I told her everything, from Malik's call to what he had heard about Vivica's plans. I talked about the photos, the bruises, the police station, Andre. When I finished, Latrice let out a long whistle. "That woman is a professional, Commander. What you're describing isn't a cruel stepmother. She's a con artist, and a good one." That's exactly what I thought. I need to investigate her. Full name, date of birth, everything I have.
Vivica Coleman. I don't know her maiden name. She's 33 years old, according to what she told Andre when he met her. They got married 5 years ago. That's enough for me. Give me 2 days. I'm going to check backgrounds, previous marriages, financial history. If she has skeletons in her closet, I'm going to find them. Thank you, Latrice. Don't thank me yet. This is going to cost me work, and if we find something big, we're going to need more than good intentions to act. I know, but first, I need to know what we're dealing with. We hung up. I stared at my phone. Then I looked around my small living room. The old furniture, the photos on the walls, the crucifix above the entrance. This house wasn't worth $4.5 million. It was worth much more. It was worth every drop of sweat I had shed working double shifts to buy it. It was worth every sacrifice, every sleepless night, every moment of solitude. And Vivica thought she could simply take it from me? She thought she could manipulate my son, torture my grandson, and wait for my death like someone waits for a paycheck? I got up and walked to the window. Outside, the sky was tinged with orange and pink. A new day was beginning, and with it, my battle. Because Vivica didn't know something. She didn't know I wasn't a defenseless old lady waiting for death. I was Regina Salazar, former commander of the Chicago Police Department, a woman who had faced drug dealers, murderers, and criminals of all kinds, and none of them had managed to defeat me. Vivica had just declared war, and I was going to make sure she lost it. The investigation was just beginning, and what I discovered about Vivica made me realize that my grandson and I weren't her first victims. 2 days later, Latrice showed up at my door at 9 in the morning. She carried a thick folder under her arm and an expression I knew very well, someone who had just uncovered something rotten. "Commander, you need to sit down before I show you this." I prepared coffee while Malik was in the shower. He had spent those 2 days with me, recovering. The swelling in his eyebrow had gone down, but the scar would remain forever.
a permanent mark of Vivica's cruelty. We sat at the dining room table. Latrice opened the folder and began taking out documents, photographs, printouts. Vivica Coleman, but that's not her real name. She was born Vivica Jenkins in Detroit, Michigan. 35 years old, not 33 like she told your son. First confirmed lie.
She never studied at private schools. She finished high school at a public school, and there's no record of her setting foot in any university. She worked as a waitress, promoter, and eventually as a dealer at various casinos around the country. Latrice put a photo on the table. It was Vivica, but younger, maybe 23 or 24 years old. She was with an older man of about 60 in what looked like a wedding. Her first marriage. She married at 24 to Robert Fields, owner of a chain of hardware stores in Detroit. Widower, 2 adult children. The marriage lasted 2 years. Robert died of a heart attack. Vivica inherited property valued at $2.8 million. The children tried to challenge the will, but they couldn't. Everything was legal. The children, what happened to them? One lives in Canada. The other, the younger daughter, filed a complaint against Vivica for threats, but withdrew it a week later. When I reached her by phone and asked about it, she hung up on me. I called her back and she told me literally, "That woman is dangerous. I don't want to know anything about her or her cursed money." I felt a chill run down my spine. Latrice put another photo down. Another wedding. Vivica with another older man. Second marriage. Frederick Allen, textile businessman in Atlanta, 57 years old, also widowed. They married when Vivica was 28. The marriage lasted barely a year and a half. Frederick suffered a fall in his house that left him in a coma. He died 3 weeks later. Vivica sold the house and business. She pocketed approximately $3.2 million. Did anyone investigate the fall? Yes, but they found nothing suspicious. Vivica said Frederick had been drinking that night and slipped on the stairs. There were no witnesses. The house security cameras were broken. I looked up sharply. Broken, just like at my son's house now. Same pattern, Commander. Exactly the same. My heart was beating so hard I could hear it in my ears. There's more. Latrice nodded and pulled out a third set of documents. Third marriage. Jerome Vaughn, retired civil engineer in Memphis, 62 years old, widower. They married when Vivica was 31. This marriage ended differently. Jerome didn't die, but his son, Paul Vaughn, 26 years old, disappeared 6 months after the wedding. Disappeared? Literally. He left his house one night and never returned. He left a text message to his father saying he needed time to think, that he was going abroad. No one has heard from him in 4 years. Jerome tried to find him, but eventually gave up. He fell into severe depression and signed documents giving Vivica legal power over his finances. She put him in a nursing home and sold all his properties. Estimated gain, $4 million. I covered my face with my hands. This was worse than I had imagined. That boy, Paul, do you think... I don't know what happened to him, Commander, but the pattern is clear. Vivica targets older men, widowers with children, marries them, and one way or another those children end up out of the way. Dead, disappeared, or intimidated. Then she keeps the money. And now she's with my son. Andre fits the profile perfectly. Young widower with a teenage son and a mother who has property in her name. She can't touch you directly while you're alive, but she can make your son inherit and then manipulate him to sell. That's why she wants to get Malik away, I said, understanding everything. Because Malik is an obstacle. He's the rightful heir if something happened to Andre, and he's smart enough to see her for what she is. Exactly. And that's why she's making him look like a delinquent. If she manages to get him put in juvenile detention or legally disowned by his father, the path is clear. Latrice pulled out another document. There's more. Vivica has an accomplice.
His name is Gerald Owens, a lawyer. He appeared in all 3 previous marriages. He handles the legal part: wills, powers of attorney, property sales. He splits the profits with Vivica, 50-50. Do you have proof of that? Suspicious bank transfers, always after each inheritance. Large amounts divided between accounts in the Cayman Islands. It's not definitive proof for a judge, but it's enough to start a formal investigation. I heard the bathroom door open. Malik came out with wet hair and clean clothes I had lent him. When he saw Latrice, he stopped. "Good morning." "Good morning, Malik. I'm Latrice, your grandmother's friend." He nodded and approached shyly. He saw the documents on the table. "That's about Vivica." I looked at Latrice. She nodded slightly. I decided Malik deserved to know the truth. "Sit down, baby." I told him everything. Every marriage, every suspicious death, every disappearance. I watched his face pale with each word. When I finished, his hands were trembling. "So, she killed those people?" "We don't know for certain, but the pattern is too consistent to be coincidence." "And now I'm next," Malik whispered. "She wants me to disappear like Paul." "That's not going to happen," I said firmly, taking his hand, "because now we know who she is, and we're going to stop her." "How?" Malik asked. "My dad won't believe us. He thinks you just want to separate them." "I don't need your father to believe me. I need evidence. Evidence that neither he nor any judge can ignore." Latrice leaned back in her chair. "Commander, what are you thinking?" "I'm thinking that Vivica is smart, but not as smart as she thinks. She made a mistake by attacking Malik that night. She got overconfident. She thought that with her word and the fake bruises it would be enough, but she left loose ends." "Like what?" "The candle holder. Malik says she hid it. It has to be somewhere in that house, with Vivica's fingerprints and probably with Malik's blood. That's physical evidence." "But we can't enter to search for it without a warrant." I smiled slightly. "No, but Malik can. Legally, that house is also his home. He has the right to be there and to get his things." Malik looked at me with wide eyes. "You want me to go back?" "Just for a couple of hours, with a pretext. You say you need your clothes, your school supplies, and while you're there, you look for the candle holder. But you're not going alone." "What do you mean?" I took out my phone and searched for something on an app. Then I showed the screen to Latrice. Spy cameras. Button-sized. They can be sewn into clothing. They transmit video in real time to a cell phone. Latrice smiled. "Commander, you haven't lost your touch." "I never lost it. It was just sleeping." We spent the rest of the morning planning every detail. Latrice would get the spy cameras. I would call Andre to ask him to let Malik pick up his things. And while Malik was inside, we would be outside recording every second. But there was a risk. If Vivica suspected something, she could act. She could hurt Malik again, or worse. "Grandma," Malik said, reading my concern, "I want to do it. I have to do it, not just for me, also for Paul, for the other children, for everyone she hurt." I looked into his eyes. He was no longer the scared boy from 2 nights ago. There was something different in him. Determination. Courage. "Okay, but we follow my plan to the letter. No improvising. If you feel you're in danger, you leave immediately. Understood?" "Understood."
That afternoon, I called Andre. He answered on the 3rd ring. "What do you want, Mom?" "Malik needs his clothes and his school things. He's going tomorrow to pick them up. I hope there's no problem." There was a long silence. "Is he going alone?" "Yes, it's his house too, isn't it? Or at least that's what you used to say." "Fine, but make it quick. Vivica doesn't want to see him." "Don't worry, it will be very quick." I hung up before he could respond.
Latrice arrived that night with the cameras. They were so small, they looked like normal buttons. We sewed them into Malik's shirt, one on the chest and another on the shoulder. From my phone, we could see everything the cameras captured. "Tomorrow at 3 p.m., I said. "Vivica will be home because she doesn't work on Tuesdays. Andre will be at the office. It's the perfect moment." Malik nodded. He seemed calm, but I saw how his hands trembled slightly while he ate dinner. That night, before sleeping, I went into his room. He was lying down looking at the ceiling. "Can't sleep?" "I'm scared, Grandma, but not of Vivica. I'm scared of what I'm going to find, of confirming that my dad is with a murderer." I sat on the edge of the bed and stroked his hair. "Whatever we find tomorrow, we'll face it together. You're not alone, Malik, and you never will be as long as I'm alive." "I love you, Grandma." "I love you too, baby, more than words can say." He closed his eyes and eventually fell asleep. I stayed there a while longer, watching him breathe peacefully. I thought about all the dangers he would face the next day, about all the things that could go wrong. But I also thought about something else, that Vivica had underestimated this family. She had underestimated a brave boy who refused to be another victim, and she had underestimated a grandmother who had hunted criminals her entire life. Tomorrow, the serpent would show her fangs, but we already had the antidote. The next day, Malik entered that house with the cameras on. What we recorded that afternoon chilled our blood and gave us the weapon we needed to destroy Vivica. It was 2:45 p.m. Malik stood in front of the mirror in my living room, checking his shirt. The buttons with the hidden cameras were invisible to the naked eye. I checked for the 10th time that the transmission worked correctly on my phone. "Audio clear, video clear," I said. "Are you ready, Malik?" He breathed deeply. "Ready."
Latrice was outside in her car, half a block from Andre's house. We would be the backup. If anything went wrong, we would enter immediately. "Remember," I said, putting my hands on his shoulders. "You go in, greet normally, go to your room, pack your clothes. Meanwhile, observe. If you see the candle holder or any other evidence, record it, but don't touch it. We don't want her to accuse you of stealing anything. Understood? And if she gets aggressive, I leave immediately." I gave him a strong hug. He smelled like soap and fear, but also like courage. "Let's go," Latrice said from the door. "It's time." We went down to Latrice's car. I sat in the back seat with my phone in my hands, the screen showing what Malik's cameras saw. Latrice drove in silence, her knuckles white on the steering wheel. We arrived at Englewood. Andre's house was large, 2 stories, with a front yard and electric gate. He had bought it with money from his first wife's life insurance, a house that should have been full of happy memories, but now was a prison. Malik got out of the car. We watched him walk toward the front door. On my phone, the image moved with each step he took. He rang the doorbell. The door opened, and there was Vivica. She wore black sweatpants and a fitted pink blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail. Without makeup, she looked younger, but also more calculating. Her eyes scanned Malik from top to bottom, like a predator evaluating its prey. "You came," she said with a flat voice. "I thought you'd chicken out." "I'm here for my things. My dad said I could." "Your dad says a lot of things. Come in, but quickly. I don't have all day." Malik entered. The camera captured everything. The elegantly decorated living room, the marble floor, the paintings on the walls. Everything impeccable. Everything perfect. A facade. "Go to your room. You have 30 minutes, Vivica ordered, closing the door behind him. Malik went up the stairs, the camera recording every detail. He reached his bedroom and opened the door. My heart broke seeing what the cameras showed. The room was destroyed. Malik's clothes thrown on the floor, his posters ripped from the walls,
His desk overturned, books scattered, his bed without sheets, like a hurricane had passed through there. "My God," Latrice whispered, seeing the screen from the rearview mirror. I heard Malik's trembling voice through the audio. "What happened to my room?" Vivica's voice came from below, shouting, "You packed your mess like a pig you are. That's the condition of your room." Malik began picking up his clothes and putting them in a backpack. His hands trembled. The camera caught him stopping in front of a broken photo on the floor. It was a photo of him with his mother, taken a year before she died. The frame was shattered. The photo had a shoe print on it.
"Breathe, baby," I whispered, though I knew he couldn't hear me. He finished packing his clothes. Then he opened his desk drawer looking for his notebooks. That's when I saw it. On my phone screen, behind a pile of torn notebooks, there was something that glittered. "Stop," I said to the phone. "Focus on that." As if he had heard me, Malik moved the notebooks, and there it was, a silver candle holder, heavy, antique, with dark stains on the base. Blood. "He found it," Latrice said. "That's it." Vivica's voice interrupted from the stairs. "You've been up there 15 minutes already." "Almost done," Malik responded, his voice surprisingly calm. Quickly, with shaking hands, he took out his personal phone and took several photos of the candle holder. Then he left it exactly where it was and closed the drawer. "Well done," I murmured. Malik left his room with the backpack over his shoulder. He began going down the stairs. Vivica waited for him at the bottom with her arms crossed. "That's everything?" "Yes." "Perfect. Then you can leave and not come back. This is my house." "This is my house too." Vivica let out a cold laugh. "Your house? This house belongs to your father, and I'm his wife. You're just an accident he's had to put up with all these years." "My mom wasn't an accident." Vivica's eyes narrowed dangerously. "Your mom is dead, and your grandmother will be too soon. It's a matter of time. Old ladies like her don't last long, and when she dies, your father is going to inherit that filthy house where she lives. We're going to sell it, we're going to get out of here, and you're going to stay in a boarding school where you learn not to be so insolent. That's why you hit defenseless children, because it makes you feel powerful." Vivica took a step toward him. The camera captured her face perfectly. Pure fury. "I didn't touch you, you lying brat. You attacked me. And if you repeat that lie again, I'll make sure you rot in a reformatory. I know the truth, and my grandmother does too. Your grandmother is nobody. She's a washed-up old woman who doesn't know when to give up, but she'll learn. Everyone learns eventually." At that moment, we heard another voice, a voice that made my world stop. "What are you talking about?" Andre had just entered through the front door, wearing his office suit, his tie loose. He looked tired, old, nothing like the son I remembered. "Honey," Vivica said, immediately changing her tone to sweet and worried. "You were home early. Malik was just leaving." Andre looked at his son, then at Vivica. Something in his expression told me he had heard more than she thought. "What was that about a boarding school?" "I was just explaining to him that if he keeps behaving badly, we'll have to take measures," Vivica responded quickly. "Andre, honey, your son is making things up again to make me look bad to you." "I'm not making anything up, and you know it," Malik said, his voice firm despite the fear. Andre ran his hands over his face. He looked like a man on the verge of collapse. "Malik, leave now." "Dad, I need you to listen to me." "I said leave!" The shout echoed throughout the house. Malik stepped back, hurt. I gripped my phone so tightly, I thought I was going to break it. "Fine," Malik said quietly. "I'm leaving. But when you want to know the truth, you know where to find me." He left the house, the door closed behind him.
on the screen, we could still see Andre and Vivica in the living room. She approached him, put her hands on his chest. "Honey, you're stressed. That boy is making you sick. We should—" "I need to be alone," Andre interrupted, pulling away from her. He went upstairs without saying anything else. Vivica stayed there looking at her cell phone with a smile that chilled my blood. She dialed a number. "Gerald, it's me. We need to speed things up. The brat is causing problems." "Yes, I know. Give me 1 more week and everything will be ready. The old lady won't know what hit her." She hung up, and at that moment, I knew we didn't have much time. Malik reached the car and got in the back seat with me. His eyes were full of tears he refused to shed. "I'm sorry, Grandma. I tried." "Don't apologize," I said, hugging him. "You did it perfectly. We got what we needed." Latrice started the car, and we drove away from there. On my phone, I reviewed the recordings. We had everything: the candle holder, Vivica's threats, her confession about selling my house, her call with Gerald. But most importantly, I had something that broke my heart: confirmation that my son was lost. That night, after Malik fell asleep, I went out to the balcony of my apartment. The city glittered under the streetlights. It was cold, or maybe it was just my heart that felt frozen. I thought about Andre as a child, how he ran to me every time I came home from work, how he hugged me and said, "Mom, I missed you all day." About the nights I stayed awake when he had a fever, the times I defended him when other kids made fun of him for not having a father. I gave everything for that boy. Everything. And for what? So a woman could come and steal him from me in less than 5 years? So he would look at me like I was his enemy? The tears I had contained for days finally came out. I cried silently so Malik wouldn't hear me. I cried for the son I lost, for the years I would never get back, for the words I would never hear from his mouth again. But I also cried with rage because Vivica hadn't just taken my son from me, she had turned him into a stranger. She had poisoned him against me, against his own son, against everything that was once good in him. And that I could not forgive. I dried my tears, breathed deeply, and in that moment I made a decision. I was going to get my son back. I didn't know how. I didn't know how long it would take, but I was going to pull him from the claws of that woman, even if it was the last thing I did in this life, because I was Regina Salazar, and mothers like me never give up, even when the whole world is against us, even when our own children have forgotten us. But before getting my son back, I had to destroy Vivica Coleman, and for that, I needed something more than recordings. I needed a perfect trap. The next morning, I woke up with a clarity I hadn't felt in years. No more tears, no more doubts, just one objective: destroy Vivica Coleman before she destroyed what little remained of my family. 6 months after Vivica's sentencing, I found myself in the community garden under the dogwood tree we had planted. It was spring, and the tree had bloomed for the first time. Pink flowers covered the branches, swaying in the gentle breeze. Today, we had won. Justice had been served. But more than that, we had recovered what Vivica tried to destroy: our family. Andre was back, Malik was safe, and I had learned that love, when it's real, can survive even the deepest wounds. The legacy of a commander isn't measured in cases solved or criminals caught. It's measured in the lives protected, the families saved, and the love that endures beyond any battle. Thanks for staying with me until the end. I've left 2 more stories on the screen. Which one's calling your name?